Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bracket Builders Podcast. I'm your host, JD Davis, and I got a bit of a weird one for you this week. It's going to be just me today. My co host Kai couldn't make it, and one of our guests that we had planned for this week wound up not being able to get in here at last minute, and so it's going to be just me for our show today. But don't worry, I still got a good one for you. So, we have a few topics to talk about today. We have the Avatar spoiler season, which is, of course, starting right now. So if you're watching this the day it came out, which is going to be Wednesday the 29th, Avatar spoilers started yesterday. There should be a few more that we haven't even seen by the time you're seeing this one, but it's going to be going for about 2 weeks. The set releases on November 14th at game stores, and then you can get it at big box retailers a week after that, as well as coming to Arena the Tuesday of that week. So it looks like it's going to be a good set so far. They've shown a lot of cards, which are pretty cool, but we'll get into that more later. After we talk about the Avatar spoilers, we're going to talk about the Pro Tour schedule in 2026 and competitive play in general. Specifically, they haven't given us the Pro Tour schedule, but we'll talk more about that later. Finally, I want to just give my piece on Standard and the current cycle that we've been in for the last year and a half, 2 years of never-ending banning conversations. There will be a small amount of ban talk, but most of the conversation today is just going to be about what my opinions on how they can get past this issue is, as someone who's been playing the game for only a few years. So, let's start with the first topic today, which is Avatar spoiler season. So, Avatar spoiler season has started officially, and we have a lot of really cool cards from the debut yesterday to take a look at here. So, the first card we're taking a look at is Airbender Ascension. This is 1 and a white for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, airbend up to one target creature. That is to say, you exile that creature, and its owner may play it by playing 2 colorless instead of its mana cost. You can still play it for its normal cost if it's cheaper for some reason, but this is what the airbending mechanic does in this set. Then, whenever a creature you control enters, put a quest counter on this enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if this enchantment has 4 or more quest counters on it, exile up to one target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Yeah, this card is a simple but elegant banger. 2 mana, blink something that you have out of play and replay it for more ETB value, or get something off of your opponents off the board for a little bit of time. And then once you've gotten 4 creatures to enter, which is trivial in a white deck, especially in Commander, you just get a free blink every turn. It's just a Felia effect put on an enchantment, so it's harder for it to get caught up in normal sweepers. Very good card. If you are playing a blink deck of any kind and you have white mana, I definitely recommend this one. The airbending cards are a little interesting when to the texture of how blink decks normally work. Typically, you wind up like playing cards that have just enters the battlefield abilities, whereas airbend kind of lets you get away with the like cast abilities on these cards, which is usually how they restrict the most powerful of the ETBs. So, who knows? Maybe there'll be a new style of airbending deck. We haven't seen a multiple color airbending commander yet. We got a really cool white one in Appa, but nothing else beyond that. But this card is a banger for commander for sure. As far as other formats, I don't know. 4 creatures entering to make your enchantment do something is a little bit too much, I think. Maybe if you're playing like Hop to It and like 3 mana, put 3 Gaudis into play kind of cards, but I don't think so. There's not really a home in standard, and it's definitely too slow for modern, where you can just do this on a creature for 2 mana. Next up, we have Secret of Bloodbending and our first Lesson card. For those of you who don't remember, Lesson was a mechanic from Strixhaven originally that was tied to another mechanic called Learn. Cards that say Learn on them let you go and get a lesson out of your sideboard and add to your hand. Kind of like a miniature little wish there. But Commander has no sideboards. So lesson cards in this format are just normal cards. That is, of course, until they change the rules again and they add a sideboard just for lessons like they did for companions. But this card specifically is pretty cool and notable outside of the lesson type. It is blue, 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 blue. So that's 4 blue mana for a sorcery that says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may waterbend 10. So, waterbending, another mechanic, is basically Convoke and the artifact version of Convoke. You can tap artifacts or creatures to help pay this cost of 10 colorless mana. So if you have 10 treasure tokens in play, you can tap all 10 of them to waterbend 10. Or if you have 5 creatures and 5 artifacts, you can do that, or some mix of them and normal mana to help pay the waterbending costs. And then this card says, you control target opponent during their next combat phase. If this spell's additional cost was paid, you control that player during their next turn instead. Exile, Secret of Bloodbending. This card is a banger in Commander. Just 4 mana, your combat is now mine. It's essentially a one-player goad that lets you choose exactly how they do everything on their next turn. If your intention is to make somebody not attack so they don't get attack triggers, you can do that as well. And then if you can just waterbend this for 10 extra mana, which of course is a lot of mana. At that point, you're playing 14 for this spell, including 4 blue pips. So I imagine you're going to have to use the waterbending alternate cost pretty significantly if you're going to ever get this for that effect. You get to just take over someone's turn, and that is broken. It is better than just an extra turn because you get to ruin their day. As a reminder, if you control somebody and their commander is put into the command zone or is removed from the table, you can choose whether or not to move it to that location or have it go where it's going to go originally. So if you sacrifice their commander to, say, a Ashnod's Altar during their combat step, you would be able to send their commander to the graveyard. Or if you were to use their own copy of Swords to Plowshares on their commander while you're controlling them, you can put their commander into exile where it's gone forever. Obviously, bit of a mean effect to do to somebody, but this is a fun card, right? Very cool, control somebody's combat, do some little tricksy stuff with it. Now, in 1v1, this card is pretty much useless. It's either a 4-mana fog that you do to make sure you don't get killed by your opponent on their combat phase, or you try and use their combat phase to mess up their turn. You get to see their hand, you get to make all their decisions. So if you know maybe they're holding on to maybe some interaction for something like your Mono Blue Belcher deck, if you're trying to fight up against somebody while you're playing that deck, you could make sure that they don't get to use it on your next turn because you can just go to their combat, tap all their lands, and move through combat. So there might be some chance that this sees play in something like that, though honestly, at that point, I'd rather just play blue and white mana to play Orum's Chant in that deck. And some builds of that did fine, but the best one is still mono blue. So I doubt we'll see this seeing play in any 1v1 formats. And I don't think any other decks can effectively do this in a way, like the quad blue cost that isn't mono blue in 1v1 formats. Our mana is going to be really good after Lorwyn in standard, where we'll have all the fetches and we'll have all the shocks and we'll have all the verges. But I don't think it's splashing a 4 pip blue card good. Next up, we have Wan Shi Tong, Librarian. This is probably the best card we've looked at so far for sure. It is X blue blue for a bird spirit. It's a 1/1 legendary creature. It says Flash, Flying, Vigilance. When it enters, put X counters on him, then draw half X cards rounded down. Whenever an opponent searches their library, put a counter on him and draw a card. So this is an Archivist of Ogma in blue that pitches to Force of Will and is a flash threat. This is a phenomenal card. If your opponent cracks a fetch land in a format like Modern or Legacy or Commander, you can flash this thing in, they'll search their library, you'll get a counter on this, and you'll draw a card, which would already be enough to have this see play in some Modern builds. But in addition to this, it's a mana sink in the late game. If you have extra mana, you can dump into it to draw extra cards, and because it has flash, you can hold up interaction, and when you don't need it, you can flash this in instead. I am super excited to play this one in standard builds of control. I feel like this is going to be a great control threat where you're just putting a big flying vigilance creature into play, drawing a bunch of cards, and just taking control of the game that way. It should be very good. We'll see how it actually turns out, but this I think will be the furthest reaching card. And obviously, in Commander, this card is a banger. Flash spells in Commander already are so good because you can wait until the end step before your turn to cast your big dumb idiot, and it will dodge all of the wraths that might have happened in that cycle. If you go too hard on a board state, someone will have a wrath and someone will use it. And so being able to hold back your biggest, scariest thing until it's the last moment for them to react is so huge. Plus, a lot of players just will not interact with anything if they see two blue pips open from the blue player because they are afraid of counterspells. So, phenomenal card. I'm going to be putting this one in a lot of my decks, and I'd recommend you do the same if you're playing Commander. Next up, we have Day of the Black Sun. X black black for a sorcery. Each creature with mana value X or less loses all abilities until end of turn. Destroy those creatures. So this card is another take on a mono black Wrath. In this case, it's acting kind of like a what was that one called? Wrath of the Skies. It's like a Wrath of the Skies where you're just paying X into it, hitting all the mana value X or less, but it's only creatures. Whereas obviously Wrath was a Modern Horizons card. This is a standard card. Uh, it takes away all their abilities and then kills them, which is really nice if they have some kind of really powerful death trigger. Maybe if their opponent's playing the Sephiroth Aristocrats deck, and you can put 3 mana into this, play your 5 for your Wrath like you normally would, and then just boom, the whole board's gone. They don't get any of their triggers, and they're just dead. But it's a little bit slow. If we're playing super hyper aggressive 1, 2s, and 3s only, I could absolutely see this seeing play. 5 mana for Wrath in Standard is not that bad, and being able to turn off their abilities is not half bad either, especially since this turns off Indestructible. As far as Commander is concerned, I'm not too enthused by this. It's going to be pretty hard for a creature-based Wrath to beat Toxic Deluge and Damnation. Uh, there could be some play to this, like if you're a big mana deck or an X-Spell deck, you have a reason to play it, but taking all the abilities away symmetrically means it's really hard for you to make this Wrath be one-sided, which is something that's super, super important in games of Commander. Making sure that you can Wrath and then still advance the game is extremely necessary in the modern Commander landscape. So I recommend for sure not going for this one and just reach for some of the different Wraths. You almost certainly have one that works with your archetype better. Alright, so next up is the card that we liked the most out of the debut, and this is The Last Agni Kai. And we didn't just like it because my co-host Kai's name is in the card. This is 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature you control fights target creature an opponent controls. If the creature the opponent controls is dealt excess damage this way, add that much red. Until end of turn, you do not lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. This is a wonderful card as a payoff for all of the firebending nonsense going on in this set. 2 mana, kill a thing, get a bunch of mana from this, go to combat, swing, you get more mana from your firebenders, and then post-combat cast some big dragon, or dump all of it into a different X spell, something along those lines. Very cool. I like this effect a lot. As far as Commander is concerned, I also like this a lot. Having removal that doubles as ramp is very nice. If you can just put this card on your 6 power creature against one of their little 1 power tokens, this is 2 mana, make 5 red. Very good. Plus, again, it makes all your firebending stuff not lose their red unspent red. So if you have firebending cards in your deck, this is a really good payoff for it. Plus, you can use the firebending mana to pay for this if you tapped out to play some kind of creature pre-combat or do a different effect you needed to establish your board state better. So, really big fan of the Last Agni Kai. I expect it's going to see play in whatever deck is using firebending in standard. I don't expect this to see play elsewhere. We have Electro from Spider-Man that does care about unspent red mana, but I don't know if that's going to be what the format's about once the bans hit in a few months. So keep an eye on this one. It's very cool, but play it in your red commander decks, especially ones that are trying to go big. Like, this should be a staple in old rule decks. Next up, we have the Badger Mole Cub. This is a 2 mana 2/2 Badger Mole. When it enters, you Earthbend 1. So you choose a land you control to become a 0/0 with haste, that's still a land. You put a counter on it, and whenever it dies or is exiled, you return it to the battlefield tapped. And then it says, whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green. This card is very, very good. Being able to double all of the mana that your little mana dorks create is very nice. A lot of decks, this is going to do a very good impression of Nyx Bloom Ancient, as you just have a bunch of little dorks tapping for mana, or you maybe animate your treasures and tap them somehow, Or, I don't know, animate your lands, like with the earthbending mechanic. That's right there. So, very nice. Plus, this curves out really nice. On turn 3, if you play this thing and you have an untapped land, you turn it into an Earthbending 1 creature, and then you tap that Earthbending 1 creature to make 2 mana, and it's paid for itself already. Very, very nice. I definitely will foresee this seeing some play in Standard. There is a really cool Simic aggro deck that did pretty well at the Spotlight Series this last weekend, despite the VV of it all. And it's playing a card that this works really well with, which is Jackal. If you don't remember what that card does, this is a 2 mana 1/1 that doubles your spells as long as you can keep their mana value the same as its power. Starts at 1, then goes to 2, then to 3, then to 4, so on and so forth. So if you can play this when Jackal's on 2, maybe you even copied a Llanowar Elf when it was on 1, you can just make tons and tons of mana, animate your lands, go super wide, and just trample over your opponents for when the Ouroboros comes down. It's going to be very cool in that format. Plus, keep in mind, if you somehow get multiple copies of this in play, those abilities stack. So if you have 2 Badger Mole Cubs and you tap a Llanowar Elf, you make 3 mana, not 1. Not just 1 extra, you make 3 mana total, which is very, very nice. So keep an eye on this one, especially with the Simic deck in Standard, and probably throw this one in your deck chock full of Llanowar Elves in Commander. Going further back, I honestly don't think we're going to see this one very much. Maybe Pioneer will play it in something like Mono Green Devotion, but I'm honestly not sure. Next up, we have the requisite 5-color Shrines Commander for the set, because Wizards can't help themselves. Hey Bye, Forest Guardian is 3 and a green for a bear spirit. When it enters, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a shrine card. You may put that card onto the battlefield and then shuffle. And then for Wooburg, you tap, and for each legendary enchantment you control, you can create a 1/1 spirit token with this token cannot block or be blocked by non-spirit creatures. I'm not a big fan of 3 and a green or 3 and a white or X and 1 color for a creature that has a 5-color activated ability, making it so you can play all the cards you want in your deck, because I feel like it takes a lot of the fun out of deck building. One of the cool things about revisiting an archetype over and over and over again, like we have with Shrines in the last couple of years, is it means we get to innovate more. Suddenly, we have enough shrines that we could do shrines in a 3-color wedge. One of the best examples of this was when we went back to doing gates for Baldur's Gate. We got a bunch of really cool gate cards in that set, and they gave us a phenomenal gates commander, Nine-Fingered Keen. A commander that's only 3 colors. Did that stop the deck from being good? Not at all. It still got to do all kinds of cool gate stuff, especially with Green's land tutoring and all that other stuff. I think there is no reason that Hey Bye should have been 5 colors, and this should have been a more unique 3 or 4 color at max Shrines deck, making it so you have more deck building restrictions and, put a bit more creativity into your deck. But because they were like, well, Ghost Shintai was so popular when we did Kamigawa, we gotta do another 5-color Shrines Commander. So here you go, out of Jumpstart, another 5-color Shrines Commander. Worth noting, this is a Jumpstart card, so it's not standard legal. Not that you would ever play it in standard. And it's not legal in Pioneer or Modern. It starts from Legacy back, which of course includes Commander. Next up, we have Aang at the Crossroads. This card is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. 2 green, white, blue for a 3/3 human avatar ally with flying that says, when he enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card with mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then, whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, transform Aang at the beginning of the next upkeep. And Aang transforms into Aang Destined Savior. This is a 4/4 avatar ally with flying. He drops the human type. Land creatures you control have Vigilance, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, Earth Bend 2. So you put 2 counters on a land, make it a creature, it gains haste. I want to talk about the front side of this card a bit more. This is basically Collected Company, but as the ETB of a 5 mana value creature. That is really, really strong, and it doesn't have an if you cast it clause. So if you cast Ephemerate on Aang at the Crossroads, you get to do a full Coco for the 5 and then one more card. Sure, Collected Company is a stronger card in that instance, but imagine it's this way, right? It's a Collected Company that comes with a 3/3 flyer for one more mana, and you just get one more creature off the top of your deck. And if that one creature you get, because it's mana value 4 or less, is one of the many 3 or 4 mana cards that come to enter play and let you exile a creature, you can play Aang, go get off the top, flicker Aang, end of your turn. Aang comes back. Aang goes off the top, finds another one, flicker Aang. Their next turn, Aang comes in on their end step. Aang goes finds another one. Put in the nether like records. What's that card? The angel, the 4 mana angel, that restoration angel. Put another restoration angel into play. Flicker Aang out of play. Put Aang back into play. Here comes another resto angel. That's a lot of bodies and a lot of value, especially in a commander game where before the next time you can attack, there's 3 other end steps going on. If it's really those creatures that exile till the end of turn, the thing you have to be concerned about here is if it's another creature you're blinking to trying to do this with Aang, like if you're doing 2 things at once, Aang will exile himself and flip. Not a big deal because once he flips, you just like flicker him again, and suddenly he's back on the front side when he enters and does his whole thing again. So very cool card. I'm super excited to build around this one. I think it might be honestly a little bit too strong for what I normally go for. I might only get to play it 1 or 2 times before I go, okay, this deck does the thing I wanted to. That's gonna go away now. But as far as 1v1 formats are concerned, a 5 mana 3/3 flyer that brings a friend is not that bad, honestly. And if you are playing something like the Restoration Angel equivalents, I think there's a 4 mana bird that Resto Angels, and there's a different other Resto Angel in Standard, I believe, as well. If you do any of those cards on Aang, you just get so much value for one card. And if they're using their kill spell on the Aang and not the thing you're getting off the Aang, you're gonna start winning pretty quickly. It's a little expensive for formats as far back as Modern and Legacy is concerned. Like, I don't expect you to ever get this into play in Legacy and win a game. But it's really cool how Aang can put into play things like uh, Abhorrent Oculus, as well from his ability, or other creatures like it, where you have to pay an alternate cost normally to put into play. So overall, very cool card. Definitely a very nice little toolboxy commander with a lot of blink synergy right there in the command zone. I definitely recommend you build this in your commander. It might be good in the 99 of a banned blink deck because it might be a little strong in the command zone. But overall, super fun card. Very excited for this one. Next up, we have Azula Cunning Usurper. This is 2 blue, black, black for a 4/4 human noble rogue with firebending 2. Whenever this creature attacks, you add 2 red mana. It lasts until the end of combat, just like all mana normally would. And then when she enters, you target opponent exiles a non-token creature they control. Then they exile a non-land card from their graveyard. During your turn, you may cast cards exiled with Azula, and you may cast them as though they had flash. Mana of any type can be spent to cast these spells. So, a couple things to mention here. First of all, this is our first time seeing firebending on one of these cards. And I figured I should remind you that the red symbols you're seeing on this card are not actually on the card. They're in the reminder text for the firebending mechanic, and like Extort from the Orzhov mechanic we had a couple years ago, this does not apply to color identity. So Azula can go into any blue or black deck, but you cannot put her into, or rather, she's not locked into Grixis and up. So she can go into just Dimir, right? Or obviously she can go into Grixis still, but this card is another really cool blink target. Like the Aang from the same era as this is a 5 mana creature that comes into play, takes and gives you some form of advantage, as opposed to giving you free creatures. It's going to give you 2 cards from your opponent's side of the field. And then you can cast them as though they had flash. So you can play her, they'll exile something they don't care about from play, and then something in their graveyard they've already used. And then you can swing with Azula and get 2 mana that can go straight towards paying for these cards because they've gained flash. If you can use Graveyard Hate like Ghost Vacuum or Relic of Progenitus to carefully sculpt what your opponent has in Graveyard before your Azula comes down, she's going to do a lot of work. Very cool card. I'm super excited to jam this one in Commander. It's basically Hostage Taker with a few extra lines of text, which means it's probably better, but it is 1 mana more, and you don't choose the creature, so, there's an argument to be made for either one being better than the other. I think you should just play both. This card is super fun. I doubt we'll see much play of this in Standard or Modern, but who knows? You never know with these kind of cards. This could be a Reanimator card. Next up, we have Iroh Grand Lotus. This is a 3 green, blue, red, 5/5 human noble ally with Firebending 2. And he's got 2 chunky lines of text. During your turn, each non-lesson instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. And during your turn, each lesson card in your graveyard has flashback, 1 colorless. Holy cow. This is really good. Now, mind you, a lot of the lessons are overcosted by design. They are typically generic, slightly weaker effects because they expect you to play them in your sideboard and get them with these learn mechanics. Now, some of these avatar ones are a bit closer to the rate of normal cards because, of course, they don't expect you to put them in the lesson board. They expect you to put them in your avatar commander decks. So, this card's got a lot of really cool targets you can go grab. I'd recommend taking a look at the full list of lessons, but it's a lot of cool stuff. But even ignoring the lesson thing, this is just Cast Dissident Mage, right? So it's a creature that lets you flashback from your graveyard all of your instant sorceries. Obviously, it's only during your turn, so you can't use it for like counter spells on your opponent's wraths, but generally, it's a pretty cool card. So I take a look at this one if you're looking for a Temur Spells commander. Obviously, this card is way too big and way too slow for formats that require you to beat one opponent in a game of Magic. But in Commander, this one's going to be a banger. So keep your eyes on Iroh. It's going to be a really fun commander from this set. Next up, we have Katara the Fearless. This is green, white, blue for a 3/3 human warrior ally that says, if a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Just another, if you do a thing, do it again card. These generally are pretty boring in my opinion, and I think this one is really no exception. 3 mana 3/3 that does nothing else besides doubling your abilities is pretty bad. We have a 4-drop that has Ward that does this already in Standard, that can do it for anything, that is seeing moderate play because it's all colorless mana in the Outcast Trailblazer Temur Battlecrier deck. Unless we have some kind of crazy ally combo or a trigger that's so strong that getting a second one wins you the game, I doubt we're going to see this card see play. A lot of the allies are small enough in power that you could just play Delny in this slot and give them unblockable. So I wouldn't look at this one beyond commander decks, right? But the art here is really cool, so I wanted to showcase it. Next up, we have my frontrunner for coolest commander from this set, because they finally did it, guys. They made a Go Wide Equipment commander that doesn't suck. This is Sokka and Suki. Blue, red, white for a 3/3 human warrior ally. Whenever they or another ally you control enters, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to that creature. Whenever an equipment you control enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So this has a lot of text to basically just say all of your equipment make a body and attach to it when they enter. Very, very good. We had a Gruul card in Final Fantasy that did this. I believe it was one of the Barretts. I believe it was Gruul. It might have been Mono Red. But we finally have a home for all of those Boros equipment cards that have been trying to incentivize you to go wide as opposed to go tall. We've been getting for these last couple years. We have the Kellen the Fey-Blooded from Eldraine. We have Amy Rose from the Sonic Secret Lair. A bunch of random cards out of the recent Cloud Precon. This is going to be a really cool commander. Think about all these equipments you have with extremely hard to activate equip costs, and suddenly you understand what this card can do. This gives you a 1 mana 11/11 ally with Colossus Hammer. This just makes Skullclamp into 1 mana draw 2, which it already was, but it's good to include this in here. And all kinds of other similar effects. Whenever your equipment enter, you make the ally, which is great, and if for some reason your equipment are in first, allies you play then get to attach themselves anyways. So, very good. This is one of those commanders that I look at and I go, yeah, that's going to be the top of the EDH page for a reason. Take a look at this one. Really, I'm excited to build this one for the channel. I might make a full bracket builds episode about this one and kind of talk about the history of these go wide equipment cards and how they've never really popped off wide in Commander, uh, and then show you why this one is the exception to the rule, especially with how much work I put into the Barrett video that I wound up scrapping. But this one is going to be a very cool card. The last card I have to show you today is White Lotus Tile. This card was shown off after the debut and is probably one of the most Commander relevant cards in the release today. 4 colorless for an artifact, it enters tapped at X mana of any one color, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. So, what does this mean? If you have 10 zombies that are also allies, you get to tap this and make 10 mana because you have 10 zombies. If you have like 3 human allies and 2 merfolk allies, you can tap this and then it will draw you a bunch of cards for all your allies, or your 6 cards. This is not draw you cards, make you mana for all of this large number in play. This is a really good effect to have onto a mana rock. It's the effect that is generated by 3 Tree City, which is a land. But this one does it this can change as you go. 3 Tree City, you name a creature type when it enters. This can fluctuate. If you have a deck that has multiple different types of creatures that you care about, maybe you are a humans deck and a knights deck, for example. If right now you have more knights than you have humans, then it's going to make more knight mana. But let's just say you're a normal green typal deck, right? And then because you're a green deck in Commander, you threw, I don't know, Avengers Zendikar on your deck. You got 12 tokens from Avengers Zendikar that are plants, and maybe you have 5 of your green elves, right? Well, you tap this, you're going to make the 12 mana for the plants. Even though this came down, and if you had to choose something, you would have chosen elf, you make mana equal to the greatest number. So, very, very good. This card is a huge mana rock. Super nice to see this coming down for 4. I'm a little concerned about this because of the Eldrazi spawns, to be honest with you. Those you get a lot of those very quickly, and this is going to make a lot of mana for those. And obviously, I'm talking about in Commander here. I don't expect a tapped mana rock that requires other pieces in play for it to be good, to do well in 1v1 formats, especially with the speed that all these formats are going at right now, and the total amount of just wipes and removal and interaction that all these decks are running, because everyone's combo. Everyone is combo. And that's it for the avatar cards we have today. I know we spent a good chunk of the podcast talking about these new cards, but overall, I just think Avatar is going to be really cool. This set is nice. A lot of the effects are normal for Magic into this current year. A lot of stuff is a little heavily pushed. This firebending mechanic is going to take combat tricks to the next level, which is very cool. I understand now why so many of these cards that look like they should have been instants are sorceries from like Tarkir Dragonstorm, and a lot of the like combat tricks we've been getting are sorceries. So I understand. But yeah, overall, Avatar is. I liked the show when I grew up. I'm the right age for it, right? I was a kid when it was on television. I grew up with the characters. I saw that terrible M. Night Shyamalan movie like everyone else did. But, I miss when Magic cards were just cool, like awesome Magic cards themselves, and they weren't all year versus beyond. But I'm not the biggest hater of it. It's just like it's the different art styles, I think, for me that is what's messing me up so much. A lot of these cards we were showing you were really awesome, like realistic fighting characters, and other ones were just anime, just straight up like anime designs. And when I opt into it from like choosing cool alt arts for my commander deck, great, I love it. But I don't really like it when it's the full set. I think they should have either hard committed to we're doing this whole thing in the style of the television show. Everything's gonna look like a cartoon character because that's what these are. These are cartoon characters. Or they should have gone the opposite direction and gone, yeah, no, actually everything's gonna look realistic in live action, as opposed to meeting themselves in this strange middle ground where we have all different spectrums of the same styles across this one setting. I know Magic does a lot of style switching sometimes, but usually there's a through line that is consistent throughout, and right now it looks like it's very hodgepodge. Could be that when the rest of the cards come out, we find that the whole thing is cartoon and like 15 cards are not, and we saw all of them today. Could be that. I don't know. But overall, the set looks cool. Power level looks normal for what we'd expect in 2025. Some of these cards are going to be very good in Commander. Some of these cards are going to see play nowhere, and that's what we expect, right? But that's it for our Avatar discussion today. I wanted to briefly talk about the state of competitive formats. So, those of you who are only here for Commander, thank you for tuning in. See you guys next week. Everyone who actually cares about the game of Magic, though, you should probably stick around because this affects you too, even if you just play Commander. So, how does this affect you? Formats like Standard are the backbone of the old, at least, pricing structure of how this game works. New cards come out. Uh, Standard players draft a whole bunch to get the cards they need. Then they sell all their extra stuff to the LGS, and the LGS sells it for cheap because they can't move it otherwise. And these are all the really cool Commander cards. Nowadays, Commander is the main driving point of sales besides heavy play in 1v1 formats. Uh, the most dangerous combination is when a card is good in Commander and in 1v1, and then a price will go into the moon, like we've seen with Quantum Riddler and Sephiroth. And so it's super important to have a healthy metagame to keep cards flowing from players to players to players. If everybody only played Commander, you'd see things like the Soulstone being $200 as opposed to the 70 it's right now. But Commander is the lifeblood of Magic now. And so who cares about the competitive Magic? Well, I'll tell you. Competitive Magic is personally the most fun I have playing this game. And typically we have what's called the Pro Tour. If you don't know what that is, it's literally just the competitive series of events of Magic, leads you up and up and up until you eventually reach what's called Worlds, which is right before the Pro Tour, which is right after the Pro Tour. So you have your local regional championship qualifiers that qualify you for the regional championship. The regional championship qualifies you for the Pro Tour, and then the Pro Tour qualifies you for the Worlds event at the end of the year to see who's the best player in the world for that last calendar year. This is why you've been seeing a bunch of random cards that have like a person's name and then world champion and a whole bunch of Roman numerals, because those people won the world championship and got the chance to design a card to be released into Magic with their face on it and that they helped create. So, next year's Pro Tour schedule is been posted, but the formats haven't been announced yet. However, it's gonna be a lot of Standard from what it looks like. We are seeing Standard RCQ season that's about to end here in about a week, followed up immediately by another Standard RCQ season. We have the RCs in February that are both still Standard, because you can qualify in one format and then have to play in another for Pro Tour. In fact, every Pro Tour has a limited component to it in some way. So even though most of the RCQs you go to are not going to be limited and the regional championships are not limited, mostly, you will have to play limited at some point, which is draft or sealed or both. So next year's schedule is a little strange. We haven't gotten the formats yet. And I have a theory, right? We are sitting here as of recording a few weeks before the VV ban announcement. Now, we don't know if they're going to hit just VV or if they're going to go back and take a sledgehammer to the format again. If I had to make a guess, based on how they've been acting, I think we're going to see VV and one other card get banned. And likely it will be Proph's Eidetic Memory. It might be Agatha's Soul Cauldron, but either way, they're not going to do enough. The format is going to be heavily warped again. New cards are going to come out. The best decks are going to get further reinforced as the best decks as they get 1 to 2 extra pieces to reinforce themselves as the deck of the year. And then everyone will go back to complaining, and then Wizards will say, we have a ban window, it's coming up in June, we'll do it then. And then they'll ban the cards in June with a big old pile of bans like they did this last year, because that's when they said they would do. And then we'll find the new best deck, complain, rotation happens, repeat, repeat, repeat. So how do we get out of this cycle? Well, the first way we could have gotten out was less sets. Less set releases means less cards being injected into the meta, which means less shakeups happening to the overall power level of current and new decks, which means we have more time to test the decks to find stuff that is a way to beat the current decks, etc., etc. It also means they have windows to ban cards that don't feel as bad. If you can play with your VV Cauldron deck for 3 months because the next ban window is until the next set, whatever. It's 3 months of VV Cauldron. This standard was all about VV. The next one comes out, we're good to go. But the way that they did it, we had to do rotation happened. Everyone knew VV Cauldron was going to be the best deck. It was the best deck. We spent an entire RCQ season with VV Cauldron as the best deck. In the middle of the season, they announced before the next season of RCQs, we're going to do take a look at standard and probably ban VV Cauldron. This is the same thing. They have done this over and over and over and over again in the last few years. I mean, I started playing Magic in 2022, I believe it was, when Shizuku Capenna came out. So I was paying attention to competitive Magic when they did the whole, okay, guys, we need to ban a card out of Scam because Scam is so oppressive in Modern. Okay, so they ban a card out of Scam. And then, but it was like 3 months late, right? And then they had to ban a card out of the Legacy decks. Legacy's been having the major issues with these new like fire design cards, where we're getting all these Modern Horizon cards, ruining the format over and over and over again, with Grief Reanimator coming, then Psychic Frog Grief Reanimator because they took too long to ban Grief. So then they banned Grief, and then the next window for Psychic Frog wasn't for 3 months, and so they ruined Eternal Weekend. And then, surprise, they did it again this year with another set of Dimir Reanimator. Who knows what they're going to hit in a few weeks in Legacy? It's not really where I focus, but like, we're seeing this issue consistently across multiple formats. We had the Nadu ban that took an entire RCQ season to happen, instead of just happening in 2 weeks when everyone knew it was going to be a problem. Because they seem to think that these new decks, these new formats, like, are going to shake it up too much, right? They're like, okay, well, when we release all the cards from Spider-Man, surely that will nerf VV Cauldron. When in reality, all it did was just give people different sideboard cards to play that were good, but never beat the deck. It wasn't enough because the deck is just too strong for the power level of standard. So we gotta get out of this somehow, because I don't want to listen to people talking about bans constantly forever. I just want to play the dang game. So they need to take action faster. When decks like Nadu, like Grief Reanimator, like Corey Steelcutter Prowess, and VV Cauldron, or even Dimir for a few weeks there, start emerging, they need to take action quickly and swiftly. Yes, I understand. Magic cards are expensive, and having your expensive deck banned out from underneath you sucks, and likely will make you want to stop playing the format less. But you know what will guaranteed make everyone want to play the format less? Having to test against VV Cauldron for 3 months when we already knew it was going to be banned anyways, in the middle of an RCQ season. Everyone is just playing Cauldron, borrowing it from their friends at the RCQs, winning, getting the qualification, handing it on to the next guy who's not at their qual yet. And the numbers are terrible right now for RCQs. We had almost no one at our local RCQ this last weekend. We had to cut to top four. The Spotlight series that happened the same last weekend had over 1,000 less players than the one in January of this year, when we had a much better format in Standard. So it's just, they need to take action faster. Waiting so long to take action is killing all of their competitive formats. But it's not just that. They also need to work on their pricing structure. The pricing for the RCQs is terrible. They're giving one promo card for entry, one promo card for top aiding, and a foil of that one if you win. Ooh, that'd be great if the cards were good. We had a store championship last year with a textless Urza Saga, and that one blew the doors off of every single LGS in the area that ran it, because the card is both good, highly sought after, and it was a unique printing of this card. Everyone wanted it. Everyone went and played Standard. It was great. Then this year, all the RCQs have been terrible. Like, a 2-mana Soul Warden that breaks a treasure on ETB is what you're going to give me for playing in Modern? Really? You're going to give me Force of Despair for playing a Standard RCQ? The next round is a little bit better, right? We're getting Manifold Mouse and the white one-drop mouse that's seeing play in Boros Mice right now. Those are at least standard playable cards for the standard RCQ season. Maybe we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they have maybe it's too short of a period of time between when they decide the format and to make the cards. So they just make the cards and then slap the format on when they decide, oh, we'll do standard here, right? But surely they plan this stuff at least a year and a half in advance. And with the rate of turnaround on Secret Lair stuff, I imagine they can get these cards out faster. I don't know, maybe I'm just wrong here. But we need better prizing. They need to start doing like prize specific packs with unique arts in them. Not obviously unique cards, but unique printings of cards that are cheaply accessible elsewhere would be great. Like imagine if you win your local LGS's like month of standard, and they handed you a booster pack with three borderless foil cards in it that are like 3 of 10, and you get only certain numbers and they're only here or something like that. Put a little bit more incentive to playing the game in person with your friends at these game stores. And I know they do promo packs already, right? You get an uncommon from the set with a cool unique frame. You get a rare and you get another random rare, and they all got a little stamp on them. That's cool. That's great. That should be a 15 card booster pack. Should be a 15 card booster pack. All the commons in it should get that new frame type. You should get playsets. However you want to do it, but like there should be more stuff they're giving you because the cards themselves are so cheap to print. They can get so many of these things just handed out and given to game stores. Heck, if you want to make it a subscription model, make the game stores pay you $15 a month, and then you'll send them a big old box of promos to use for their prizing, right? Something along those lines. But there needs to be a more incentive to going out to these events and playing in them. Look at the MagicCon events that they had this last year. They did unique arts for like Aerith and Tifa if you played in these events or if you won or top aided, and those went for thousands of dollars because they are cool, unique arts of cards people care about because of the characters, but also because like Tifa is seeing some legitimate play in Commander and some legitimate play kind of in a tier 3 modern deck, right? But people like these characters, they like the designs. Do this stuff. Give us a Jace the Mind Sculptor for going to play Modern. They unbanned the card in the format. It's a good sideboard card now. Give us a cool borderless Jace the Mind Sculptor. Throw us a textless, I don't know, Texas Ephemerate because you went to the Modern RC. Or give us some kind of like, oh, I know, we're going to do these land cycle. We're going to do borderless shock lands in standard in the next year. The shocks are standard legal until 2027. So if you go to the RCQ and you win, you get a little booster pack, and inside of it you get a borderless shockland with unique art themed around standard stuff. Maybe it's like there's like 10 shocklands, so maybe it's well we had 7 sets. There's 10 sets in standard. We shocklands themed after a different set. I don't know, something like that. Just give us some reason to play in these games because like financial reason because it will genuinely help drive engagement, will make people buy more cards, make people want to play these formats better. And if you can quickly take action on them when they're rough, it's just going to fix the problem overall. So quick and efficient bannings, and even if you have to do it nerfs like you did the companion mechanic, turn that stuff around quickly. Maybe 3-4 weeks after a set release. Do not let a deck like VV Cauldron happen for 4 months. Do not let people see 57% day 2 win rate on a deck, like 57% conversion rate rather, from day 1 to day 2 at an event, and then you don't take action on this on the deck for 3 more weeks. That's ridiculous. 57% of people who play VV Cauldron made it day 2. It was already the most played deck in the room, and almost everyone day 2'd. All of the stuff below it died. Sure, it didn't win the whole event. It lost to somebody who was playing a very good high roll aggro deck that gets underneath the Cauldron deck. But that's not the lesson to take away here. The lesson to take away is that you need to take action on your formats, keep them maintained. Modern is kind of evening out, which is nice, but like standard needs to be chipped away at. This can also be solved by going, here's an RCQ season for standard. The next one's going to be Pioneer. The next one's going to be Modern. The one after that's going to be Limited. And then it's back to standard. And then you have that period of time where you don't have to really focus on these formats very much. You can be like, cool, we're going to keep standard nice and healthy for the whole RCQ season. When it's done, we'll move all of our focus onto Pioneer. We'll give them a big update right before the format starts. Then the format runs for 2 months. And at the end of it, in the middle of it, we make some changes. At the end of it, we make another set of changes. We let them run free until next year when it's their turn again. So repeat with Modern, repeat with Legacy, or not Legacy. No one wants a Legacy RCQ format, really. But like, do this with more of your formats. You have all these cool formats in this game. Use them. Or kill them. If you're not going to use them, just end them. Don't make people think, oh, well, maybe I should get this card because it might be cool in Pioneer one day. Just stop support for it. If you're not going to support Legacy, if you're not going to support Pioneer, if you're not going to support Vintage, end the formats as official competitive formats for Magic, make them into fan formats like Tiny Leaders and all that stuff. Find a different way to do the bans because clearly you guys aren't paying enough attention to Legacy. If you're not going to ban at a different cadence than standard RCQ seasons. Also, like, why are bans for decks that aren't the current RCQ season, like the formats rather, that aren't the current RCQ format, tied to restrictions put in place because of the RCQ system? It's a whole mess. Take a serious step back, look at what these last few years have been like for balancing of your formats, and fix it. Because competitive Magic has some real competition coming for them right now. Pokemon is ramping up the surprise support as the boom that happened during 2020 has kind of leveled out, and they're at a place where that is still beating Magic, but they're starting to put more money into their competitive scene. And another legitimate contender for Magic's 1v1 competitive space, Riftbound, is releasing this week. I've played the game a bunch this last couple weeks. I've had a ton with it, but we'll see if it lasts as long as Magic. It could because of Riot. I hope it does because I really enjoy the game. But Magic's gonna be my main game forever. There's just so much to do in this. It's got 30 years of history. So formats like Commander are gonna be so much better in games like Magic than they would be in games like Riftbound, even if Riftbound in 20 years still exists. Magic has 30 years on it, so it's not gonna really compete properly. But Wizards needs to pay attention because they're not the only ones doing this. We need some better incentives to going at these events. Fix all of your competitive 1v1s. And don't be wishy-washy on Commander. Make some serious changes or don't make them. Because this last week with the hybrid mana changes has been ass. Pardon my language, but it's just been terrible. Everyone has been throwing little fits online about, oh, well, hybrid mana will ruin the game. Like, it's not even a big deal. It's just companions. I think it'd be cool, but if we're gonna have this big of an uproar anytime we make any changes to Commander, either make them or don't, because just talking about it is just gonna cause a huge stink for no reason. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening to my unhinged rambles about 1v1 Magic. I hope next week we will have an episode for you where I have a guest to bounce off of a bit more. Uh, but just of how things worked out, it's just going to be me today. So thank you so much for listening. This has been the Bracket Builders podcast. We have a Patreon available where all tiers of patrons can submit a deck to have their commander deck tweaked by us live on stream. I stream every Wednesday nights as long as YouTube doesn't mess us up. In order to, go over some commander decks, tweak some people's lists, make new ones from scratch, and then play some games afterwards if I got some time. But that's all I have the time for today. If you guys have any questions for us for the next podcast, we're going to have Goblin Ringleader on, hopefully, who is one of our local Magic players who's been doing goblins across every format for as long as I can remember. And he's been doing fairly well with it. He almost day 2'd at the Modern RC on a new build of goblins, just barely missing out the 4-0 reverse sweep to get him to day 2. And so I'm going to talk to him about what it's like to play goblins in all formats. So if you have any questions for him next week, just put them in the comments below or message us. We have whether at us on formats like Blue Sky or here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching the Bracket Builders podcast. I've been your host, JD Davis. Have a good day.